Do subscribe to Ekeeda channel and press bell icon to get updates about latest engineering, HSC and IIT JEE main and advanced videos.
Hello friends, now we are going to do another numerical which is based on Gibbs free energy change, and in that we are going to predict whether the reaction is exothermic or endothermic, as well as whether the reaction is spontaneous or not. So this is a question where we have to determine whether the reaction with the following delta H and delta S value that they have given to us are spontaneous or non-spontaneous, as well as we have to predict whether the reaction is exothermic or endothermic. So basically there are two data that have been given to us, and the first data is A and the second is for the reaction B. So let us go with the first one. So for reaction A, or we have that is the delta H value, that is delta H is equals to minus 110 kilojoule per kilojoule is the value of the delta H that they have given to us, and in that case the thing that we have to do is we have to convert it into joules. So therefore I will multiply by 10 raised to 3 so as to make it in joules, and the value of delta S is also been provided to us. It is basically 40 joule per Kelvin, and the temperature is also been provided, that is temperature is equals to 400 Kelvin. So on that basis we have to calculate whether the reaction, or we have to determine whether the reaction is spontaneous or not. But the more over thing that I want to explain is that we cannot predict that the spontaneity of a reaction by just looking or just by observing that the delta S will be positive or not. So the best criteria, the best parameter so as to measure whether the reaction is spontaneous or not is nothing but the Gibbs free energy. So in this case we are going to apply the Gibbs free energy change formula, and for that we have, that is delta G is equals to delta H minus T delta S. So let us see what is the answer that we could get. But first of all, what we are going to do, we are going to substitute the values in this case. So therefore for H, or for delta H, we have the value that is 110 into 10 raised to 3, and the overall answer will be minus of T, that is for temperature that we have, that is 400, into the delta S value is been given as 40. So let us see what is the answer. So we have got a value of minus 126.00 into 10 raised to 3 joules. So this is the value of the delta G that we have got, and now we could clearly say that the reaction is spontaneous or not based on delta G, or Gibbs free energy change. So in this case the Gibbs free energy change is been found to be negative, which is less than 0. So therefore now the reaction is basically spontaneous. As well as we have to predict whether the reaction is exothermic or endothermic. So for measuring or for predicting whether the reaction is endothermic or exothermic, we take the help of the heat of reaction or the enthalpy of the reaction. So in this case, as you could see that the enthalpy of the reaction is in negative, that is minus 110 into 10 raised to 3 joule. So because the delta H has been negative, so that means heat has been evolved from the system to the surrounding, or has been released from the system. So therefore in this case we could easily say that the reaction is basically exothermic. So this was the first condition that they have provided us by giving us this kind of data. So now let us do for the second one also. For second one they have given us, that is the value of delta H, that is the change in enthalpy. It is nothing but plus 50 kilojoule. So I could write it as 50 into 10 raised to 3 joule, just for a better convenience. And the value of delta S is also been provided to us, that has been basically minus 130 joule per Kelvin, and the temperature is also been given as, that is 250 Kelvin. So again the thing is, we will depend on the value of delta G, and because of which we could say that the reaction is spontaneous or not. So therefore the delta G has a value of delta G is equals to delta H minus T delta S, and the value of delta H is also been given to us. So I will write it as 50 into 10 raised to minus 10 raised to 3 minus of that is the temperature that they have given us, that is 250 into that entropy, that is the change in entropy that has been found to be, that is minus 130 joules per Kelvin. So now what we are going to do, we'll calculate this thing and let us see what is the answer we could get. And more thing that I want to explain, that this minus is here and again this minus is here, means again the value will be a positive one. So let us see what the value we get in this thing. So we have got a value of, overall we have got a value of basically 82500, and the overall answer will be in joules. So this is the value of delta G that we have got. And in this case, the delta G or the Gibbs free energy change is found to be positive or more than 0. So this clearly indicates that it is basically a non-spontaneous reaction. So this reaction is basically, of this process is basically non-spontaneous, and moreover we have to predict whether the reaction is endothermic or exothermic. So as you could see that the delta H is basically written in positive, or it has a positive value. So this positive value indicates that the heat has been absorbed in the system. So because heat has been absorbed in the system, and that too with the amount of 50 kilojoules, so this clearly indicates that the reaction or the process is basically endothermic. So this was a numerical which I wanted to do so as to make sure that the spontaneity of a reaction is not dependent on the delta S itself, but it depends and clearly depends on the value of delta G or the Gibbs free energy change. So this is it, where you have made a difference to get to know whether the reaction is spontaneous or not. So thank you friends for watching this video. I hope you have liked this video, and you'll do this kind of numericals more and more, just to make sure that you have got a whole idea of the spontaneity and the exothermic or endothermic reaction of a particular process. So share this video with your friends, and yes, make sure that you will subscribe eGITA channel. Thank you so much.